Be a nanny, care, have any kids.
None that she knows about.
I know about lots of things. I run all what I like to call the last 3 years the Harry Potter psychology panels here. I like to tackle, how J.K. Rowling wrote different social issues in the Harry Potter books. I think it's fascinating. And to back that up, I have a double major in psychology and sociology. And anyway, that's me. What are you?
I'm Olivia. I've been on over 50 panels during the CONjuration's existence. And I'm a junior at Birmingham Southern, where I'm a sociology religion double major.
I am Chris, second year. I run the show. I have no sociology degree. I'm a art major. I have a BFA. And what I know about sociology is just from fun. But I've seen discrimination. I know how escapism bleeds.
You run a convention, I think it's sociology in a way.
It's true, that's true.
Yeah.
It's a very sociological
Yeah.
convention, yeah. And I love the fact how diverse the show is. I like walking through the hallways and seeing that, hey, we're kind of reaching a little bit of everybody. That's kind of cool. So. It's neat. I look forward to looking at the list of pre-reg names just so I can go, oh, look, we have ones from Latin America, and oh, there's some from Africa, and oh, there's some from Asia. It's cool. I love that. I like reaching people. Don't worry about you. She's a defender, so it's possible she's stuck in a cell, so she may not be able to make it.
Oh, that's fine. So I wanted this to be more of a round table, because what I really wanted to do was present some things to you guys, and then hear you guys' opinions on it, because that's what makes it fun to me. I don't like just talking, I like discussing things. So let's just, we'll just get started. I wanted to introduce a couple of the characters that I felt had good story arcs, starting with one was Infamous. Wow, actually. Infamous to me, Draco Malfoy. I want to hear people's opinions on the fact that he was raised, born and raised in a very, in a bubble. He comes to Hogwarts with a lot of prejudices that may not be entirely his own. He has a very set way of believing, and I think a lot of that is based on the fact that he was not shown anything else for the first 13 years of his life. Both of his parents are on the Sacred 28. I mean, they are the pureblood of pureblood families. He's only allowed to associate with other people of that status. He is not given the chance to see how the outside world lives at all. He's raised in a manor with kind of limitless wealth, it almost seems. And I apologize if I lose my track a little bit. I woke up a little hot this morning.
I think Draco reminds me, you've all seen pictures of the members of the KKK and they have their little kids dressed in robes. That to me is the very definition of Draco. It's like, wow, he wasn't allowed to grow on his own. He was taught this bullcrap from these two horrible people. I mean, as it turns out, his mother may not quite be as horrible. She married money and probably had to change her worldview in order to make sure the checks could be cashed. But I feel really, really bad for Draco because I think he proves in the growth through 7 books that he is capable of more. He's capable of deeper understanding of humanity, and his father is a sack of crap who ruined him for so many years, and it wasn't fair to him. I love the development of Draco. I truly despised the kid in the first number of books, and then, by the end, I'm like, oh my God, he's figured this out. He understands that his dad is just wrong, and this way of thinking is not the way it should be. No, go.
Because you said Narcissa is by maiden name a black. Is everyone here semi-familiar with the Sacred 28, or what that meant when I said that? Anyone not? Sacred 28?
I am not afraid to say no.
Oh, no, that's more in depth. Like that's not in the books. That it got introduced later on Pottermore. J.K. Rowling kind of went back and gave the basis for wasn't the origin of pureblood? But okay, what the Sacred 28 is reporting is that they are the 28 British magical families that are truly pureblood by like the 1930s. This does include the fact that they probably were very much Targaryen-like. The only people that did not participate in that actually were the Malfoys. The Malfoys did not care about their lives so much that they committed incest. But the Sacred 28 include roughly Abbott, Avery, Black, Bulstrode, Burke, Caro, Crouch, Fawley, Flint, Gaunt, Greengrass, Lestrange, Longbottom, Macmillan, Malfoy, Knott, Ollivander, Parkinson, Pruitt, Rossier, Rowell, Selwyn, Shacklebolt, Shaffic, never heard that one, Slughorn, Travers, Weasley, and Yaxel. And I want to get into that later. The Pruitts and the Weasleys are both on the Sacred 28, even though the Weasleys later got excommunicated because they're considered blood traitors.
Oh, they are. It's not an accusation. They're flat out blood traitors. The thing is, it's a ludicrous notion to be worried about. So,
well, just like on the Sacred 28, a lot of traitors, they're not. The Potters were actually also on here, but they weren't labeled at all. The Weasleys did not get it as bad as the Potters. The Potters did something, and they won't even put them on the list anymore. Anyway, continuing back to Draco and his story arc, he starts off as just a little kids. Are there kids? I swear a lot. Any children? Cool. He's a shit. And this kid, I hated him from the get-go. There was just nothing redeemable about him. He was just rude and entitled, and he reminded me of myself. No, I'm joking. And he was a very unlikable character for the first few books. He went out of his way, out of jealousy. I think at Hogwarts was the first time that the world had not been about him. Because he was raised to believe that he was a king in his own right. He was pureblood, he was loyal to Voldemort, and his family would be revered. And so he got to Hogwarts in this little upstart half-blood named Harry Potter, who apparently was not the dark prince that everyone kind of hoped that he would be, is getting all the attention. And he was not okay with that, and how he reacts to that is very much a product of his upbringing. What is interesting is that around the fourth or fifth book, he's still kind of doing shitty.
Yeah.
He's still terrible in Order of the Phoenix, so yeah. He's part of the Inquisitionals, that squad, so.
But there's something in the fifth book where Voldemort is back. And I think that made it a little real for him. You know.
Oh, that was 6.
6?
Yeah, it's
5th was when we got the greatest villain of the Harry Potter series in, what's her name?
Umbridge.
Umbridge, thank you very much, Umbridge.
Dolores Jane Umbridge.
Yeah, she absolutely is the greatest villain of the series. Voldemort's very two-dimensional, but Umbridge is a level of evil that is just so well developed. And that's... It's 6 when he, 5 he's still being a dirtbag. 6, I think that's when you start seeing that there's cracks in this
So I would say that 6 is when it becomes real for him, because Order of the Phoenix, we have this confrontation at the end of the book where he knows that Voldemort is back and he's all for it, and he kind of threatens Harry and his friends, and he's like, I gave you a chance to choose the right side, and now you're gonna find out what losing is like. Of course, then he gets attacked by the Dumbledore's army and is jinxed like 6 times. But yeah, in the 6 is when we think he's taken the dark mark and he's having to actually do a task for Voldemort, and he realizes that what it actually means. It's not just about the bravado. It's like, actually having to possibly kill somebody. Don't really know if I can do that.
Yeah, it's one thing to think that the Nazi uniforms look really, really awesome and to put one on, but then to have to do what they want you to do is something totally different.
Yeah, and there's a difference between being a bully and being a murderer. And I think he realizes that.
Yeah. I mean, he's a bully. He goes out of his way to make those who are not pure know it in sneaky, twisted, mean little ways, but not to the depths that are required of him starting in book 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's 6 is when you start to see that maybe he's smarter than the rest of them. Yes?
Well, he wasn't just asked to kill someone, he was asked to kill Dumbledore. And that is crazy.
Do you think that it would have bothered him less if it had been Hermione that he was asked to kill?
Yes. I don't think he would have been able to do it, but I think he struggled more because it was Dumbledore.
Was he struggling more because he admired Dumbledore more, or because he was scared of Dumbledore more?
I think it was because Dumbledore was so powerful that probably he admired him.
I think he's not a murderer. He's not that bad. And man, they want him to be. And I think he's just really torn with with the levels of evil that they want him to be.
Well, and not just that, but it's not just the task that he has to do to prove himself. It's the task he has to do to keep his parents from being killed. It's not just his life on the line, it's his parents, and those are probably the only people he's actually legitimately cared about in his entire life.
And I think it's around, it's definitely in 7, is when you see the break between he and his father, that admiration, that pedestal has just been chopped in half, and Dad is on the ground. Draco's seeing his dad in a totally different light, and I think he's seeing that his mom bought into bullcrap that she really didn't believe, but was forced to out of subservience to this man that she married. Yes?
So Draco Malfoy, he had issues coming to terms with having to kill Dumbledore, like you said, and I feel like his whole childhood was incredibly traumatic, and he was forced all these ideals. But at what point, especially when he goes to Hogwarts, which is like kind of a safe haven, an atmosphere that's kind of supposed to build your character and build who you are as an individual, separate from your family. At what point do his actions reflect on who he is and not his upbringing? Because I felt like Hogwarts gave him so many opportunities to become a better person and maybe to build who he is outside of his family, and exposure to Mudbloods and different areas of life and stuff. But still, he was a bully, and he was incredibly cool. And I know he had issues killing Dumbledore because, I guess he kind of represented Hogwarts, which was kind of a safe haven from his childhood and his family. Having to kill him probably was.
He should have grown as a person at Hogwarts, but Hogwarts does this lovely thing where they sort you into houses. Mm-hmm. And so he may have been taken out of his home, but he was thrown in with the same people. And that's not how you fix that.
People that treated him like he'd always been treated. People don't really have inclination to change when they are, when they're not thrown into a situation. In his world, he was like the Prince of Darkness. Why would he ever want to change? You know, he had money, he had power, people were afraid of him. You know, and that's very intoxicating for a child.
Exactly.
For a child, you know, yes, like I am it, like I am what everyone should be. There is no.
So do you think being sorted into the Slytherin house like perpetuated that
Yes.
like grandiose? And
Yes.
do you think like categorizing the students by like their characteristics and
Yeah, the only way that it could be fixed is if the sorting hat chose not to take the desires of that person into play, because then, without a shadow of a doubt, Draco would have been sorted into Ravenclaw and he would have turned out to be a much better person a lot sooner than he did. He was sorted wrong because of his deep-seated desire as fed to him by his psychopathic family members that he had to be in Slytherin. And I think he would have been a better person if he had been sorted into Ravenclaw. Not that everybody in Slytherin is evil. I mean, that, you know, that's, I'm not buying into that bullcrap, but that did not help him. That was a bad thing for him. Some of us could survive. You could sort me into Slytherin, I'd be just fine. But you couldn't do that to him. He needed out of that system, and he needed to be thrown into Ravenclaw, which is really his true house.
I don't think that it was his desires to be sorted into Slytherin. I think it was his fear that sorted him into Slytherin. Because if he hadn't ended up in Slytherin, he would have been beaten and degraded and everything by his family. So I think it was his fear, not his desires.
It may have been fear that made him walk up there, sit in that chair, and sit there and go, Slytherin, 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 Slytherin. But I seen him arrogant, sitting there saying it over and over in his head, so that the hat really didn't have much of a choice. I don't think he went up there and said, oh God, please let me go into Slytherin. I don't see Draco doing that at all.
No,
I think,
it's also that, like the Weasleys, they had been Slytherin for generations. I do think the hat is prejudiced, and like, I don't think the hat would ever consider not sorting in Weasley into Gryffindor.
no.
And I don't think the hat would ever consider not sorting in Malfoy, because it literally gets up there, he's like, oh, I know what to do with you. Like,
No, the hat doesn't even touch his head.
whatever. I was from Weasley too, but it's still, the hat wasn't even thinking about it. It was not sorting. It was like, this is a Malfoy, it's Slytherin. In fact, his mother did not want him going to Hogwarts at all. She did not want, no, his father did not want him going to Hogwarts.
I mean, that argument doesn't fully work though, because you do have Sirius Black. So it's not a set rule.
That's true. It's not. It's not. I think it's a hard
It might
thing.
be a predisposition for
Yeah.
that
Oh,
house.
I don't think it's necessarily a
there
rule,
is-
but I do, sorry.
I think it's weighted.
Was a breed.
Definitely
Yeah,
weighted, but you know.
Draco had all that pure-blooded crap stuffed into his brain from day one,
Yeah.
and he accepted and agreed with it.
Yes.
Sirius Black, on the other hand, yeah, he had the same mess shoved at him, but he rejected a lot of it.
And I think a lot of those people whose families have been going for generations, that everybody's always been the same thing, they just go up there with an acceptance. I don't think it's a desire. I think they sit in the chair and don't have any other expectation whatsoever. I think Draco, I think Ron.
Yeah.
Because if the hat was honest, Shannon, you'd have been in class with Ron, because he's a Hufflepuff. I mean, he is. He's a flat-out Hufflepuff. He's loyal, brave. Come on, show him his spider. See how fast he takes his I mean, come on, there's no bravery there. He's a Hufflepuff.
Except, I mean,
He's
he
great to be a
was
Hufflepuff.
willing to go in the Forbidden Forest following the spiders for Hermione.
Which is a very Hufflepuff trait. He did not
But it's
go in
still
there, he
courageous.
He did that on
The love of
loyalty.
his life
Yeah.
was petrified.
I mean, love his life at 12. I mean,
Yes, that's Hufflepuff. That's Hufflepuff.
And see, Draco would have done really well had he been sorted into Ravenclaw with Hermione, who should have been in Ravenclaw, and the two of them, you know, he would have learned very quickly by being in all of her classes that perhaps being half-blood isn't, it doesn't make you less of a
not
person.
born.
But yeah, the sorting hat, screw these kids, yes.
Isn't being afraid of something and doing it anyway an act of bravery?
Yes.
It is.
You're doing it for yourself.
I always go back to the Battle of Hogwarts, where a great number of the Gryffindor students went home. The Ravenclaws, a great number of them went to the library. The Slytherin hung out in the basement, and every Hufflepuff there pulled out their wand and charged into battle. Every single one. All the Hufflepuffs are very, very brave when it comes down to what needs to be done. And I think that's Ron's bravery, is it needs to be done. So, I mean, that's not, we're not in here to
Yeah,
discuss Ron. We're here saying that sorting hat really, really screws people
Whole
up.
other panel, whole other panel. We can do that panel. But while we're on the topic, Ron is the next person. I don't know if this is more of unpopular opinion or it's sub-canon, but there is a definite strain of prejudice in Ron, specifically because he is also a pure blood. He is one of the Sacred 28 as well, whether they want to admit it or not. He was raised in an entirely Wizarding family that has, they can't use a telephone, they don't understand what a rubber ducky is. You know, we're talking like some magic folk. So, you know, it's apparent in small ways throughout the book, but I think the biggest instance is in it's been a while, the 5th book.
I don't know.
That, it starts in Goblet of Fire. Yes, book 4. Yeah.
I tried to read
Society
it all.
for the Protection of Elfish
Yes.
Welfare.
And he disagrees, not because, you know, but it honestly just doesn't register with him why Hermione would be so concerned with the servants. House elves are servants. They can't afford one. I'm sorry. But house elves, they have their place, and in his mind, he may be okay with mudbloods because his family is disgraced themselves, and you know, blood purity might not be such a thing. But when it comes to half-breeds, like Hagrid's brother, he has a big issue with Groot.
Grop.
Groot.
Wrong. Biggest no trouble ever.
I never thought about it that way.
Look, I think I can hold him accountable for the house elves, but I don't think I can hold him accountable for Raw. I mean, good Lord. No, I'm gonna, ripping up trees and destroying things
Well, it's
and
not even just that, but on the giant factor, when he learned that Hagrid was a giant, his first reaction was, ooh, are we sure we still want to be friends with Hagrid? And then it was, okay, yes, acceptance,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Very similar with Remus Lupin as well. When he learned of his werewolf status, his first reaction was, oh my god, it's a werewolf, guys, get back. And I was like, okay, no, it's okay, we know him.
But then we also still have the question of like,
yeah.
you know, it's kind of the whole thing, like homophobics might be okay with like the one gay person. So there's still kind of the question is he still okay with giants and with werewolves, or does he have the one exception?
Maybe he's that, he does have to know each and every one in order to break down those prejudices. Some people operate on that level. Yeah. But at least he's willing to do it. And it doesn't take him long. You know, he's only a jerk for a little bit of time. And that's great. I think that does show that he has growth capability. And maybe by the time he's an adult, it's not taking him so long. He's got a broader view of the world. He's not buying into the bullcrap that's, you know, he's listened to his whole life. And you know he didn't get that house elf crap from his parents. You know he didn't. Do you never hear them mention it all? They don't have a house elf. He's hearing it from other people that he knows who all have house elves. Oh no, they love that. When you're told that when you're 4 years old, and then when you're 5, and when you're 6, and when you're 7, you're told by other wizards in the community, oh no, they love that, they love that, they love that. And your parents don't counteract it because they don't have anybody working for them.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
like
gotta get a beat in your
subconscious. Instead of, you know, intentional discrimination, that's just how things are. It's the complacency for him.
It is.
He's not actively discriminating. He's just like, this is how it is. This is the wizarding world, and this is their place, and this is bad, and this is good, and this is how it is.
A lot of discrimination is people not stopping to think about something.
Yes.
They just accept,
Yes.
oh, well, this is the way it is, without going, hold, give me a second. Oh, that's just stupid. Yeah, we should do that. They don't take that few seconds that it takes most of the time to realize that their notions are ludicrous.
And I think because his family was so disgraced and like, he kind of had like that whole, like, they didn't have house elves and they weren't as pure as they weren't as high up as like the Malfoys. So I think that there was the kind of that thing where even if he did have prejudices, it was like, I'm not that bad. Like, I'm not like the Malfoys. I don't want to just kill Hermione. You know, like, I don't think that they shouldn't go here. He just had like an unconscious bias.
You know, his parents didn't cover the house elf thing because it didn't come up because they didn't have house elves. But they had covered the half-blood thing. They had covered the Muggle-born thing, which is evident when he doesn't have a problem with Hermione, you know, other than she's just irritating. Well, gosh, I know lots of people that are irritating. He didn't have a problem with that, and I think that that's proof that his parents do a good job when it's something that comes up in their home. And his dad loves Muggle. So, you know, give him a Muggle any day of the week and he'll go hang out with him and fix a car and find some batteries. And so I think it's pretty clear that they do a good job when it's a subject matter that has actually come up in their house. But if it hasn't, then Ron has been formulating his own stupid ideas based on crap he heard from, you know, secondhand people. You know, oh, it's all fine. I know giants are horrible and house elves love doing work for us. Yeah, he's just hearing secondhand information. I think Mr. and Mrs. Weasley do a good job when it's a subject that they've actually had a chance to discuss. But if they haven't, Ron, bless his heart, there's a reason he's not in Ravenclaw. He's not researching this stuff on his own.
Access.
Do I?
Ron's family doesn't have all the resources that some of these like other pureblood families have. So he's not around things to like gain an understanding or to get that knowledge. And like they're so obsessed with Muggles because they're like disgraced in kind of the same way the wizarding community's like, we don't like Muggles. They're like, oh, well, they don't like us either. So like, let's find out about the Muggles. So I do think like you're right. Like if they had access to like house elves and giants and stuff, then they would be like, oh, like we shouldn't, like they're no different than us. But I think that they just don't have that access.
I think that if you threw the
knowledge.
Weasleys into Draco Malfoy's family mansion, they would not own or they would not have house elves working for them. I truly believe that, that they wouldn't. And the subject would have come up and Ron would have been the first one to sign up for Spew. But he didn't get that chance.
Yeah, but because they didn't like have access to house elves, they didn't think about it.
You know, I was sort of thinking Ron, because of their status, they've probably learned a lot of stuff through history, but like you said, I think you throw them in Malfoy Manor that very first Christmas, the house elf gets a sweater from Molly.
Aww.
You know, that is so sweet, Dan. You should turn that to a story for next year. Yeah, if they took over Malfoy Mansion and it came with all the perks, including all their house elves, you're absolutely right. She would knit them a sweater. Bless her heart. Don't screw me, Mom.
Oh,
I love her.
not my daughter. That's not the whole quote.
Do what? No, I'm not doing the whole quote. The door opened a couple of times. I don't know what little kids may have come in here. Doesn't look like bitch. I love that. My favorite scene in that movie.
There's really no redemption for this guy, but do you guys want to talk about Tom Riddle and perhaps why he is the way he is? Oh yeah, all right.
Jump on it.
Go.
Tom Riddle is like Hitler. There's some self-hate there. Hitler was a part Jewish, so he's part Muggle, and for that reason, he really hates that part of himself that he sees as weakness, which is why he hates Muggles as much as he does.
We have to imagine that his entire birth was a manipulation. His mother put a love spell on his Muggle father, and then she died giving birth to him, and the spell wore off, and he was like, oh no. So there has to be some very deep resentment, just from the get-go. And now he's an orphan, being raised among these people that he has the resentment towards.
And here,
I don't ever have a problem with you taking a bully down. By any
Yeah,
means
but on
necessary.
the other hand, look at what Harry did with the Dursleys.
With the who?
The Dursleys. They treated him equally as bad. Maybe not so much physically abused him, but it was definitely mental abuse going on there. And after our argument, Harry would be justified in coming back when he was 17 and using the Cruciatus curse on all three of them.
And all I can say to the Dursleys is, you should be really thankful that it was Harry that you abused and not me.
But I think that,
And this is coming from a Ravenclaw, not a Slytherin, but I would have taken those twits down hard. The only one who had any sort of redemption in my eyes was Dudley.
Yeah.
You know, in the 7th book. And even then, it's like, you know, I'm sorry, dude, that's like a deathbed confession. You're not going to heaven. But you know what? Maybe you're not quite the piece of crap that I thought you were. You know, maybe you've learned that your parents were wrong. And I think that was setting us up for what happens with Draco later in the book. I think she did a good job there. Like, oh, look, Dudley redeems himself a little bit. Are you cool with that? Good. Wait till the end of this book. You're going to see an even bigger redemption.
I
But yeah.
think Rowling drew that parallel on purpose between Harry and Tom, and to give them the, like you said, the same
Yeah.
upbringing, and to show that it is a matter of choice.
There, but for the grace of God, go I. Yeah, the story always has two ways of going, and
Yeah.
she showed both of them very well.
do you think it could have to do with the fact that the Potters really loved each other and wanted to be together and wanted to have a child versus Dad, if he was under his own willpower, never would have. So he was conceived out of
Yeah.
Deceit.
I do. Okay, so in my day job, I actually do a lot of that. Subconscious birth trauma is what we call that. Yes, the way you are conceived and born has an impact on your entrance into this world and your personality. So yeah, I would have, yeah, I would say that as a large point. To also say, knitting lady in the blue. Sorry. Oh, no. I know that's always what you're doing, so I was like, that's.
We expect that.
Yes, we approve. But to say, although he did not know what he was prior to being 11, he did have that subconscious feeling of not being wanted, whereas Harry, even though his aunt and uncle treated him like absolute garbage, always knew somewhere deep down that his parents loved him, and they didn't leave on purpose. So I think that has a lot.
Is that the birth trauma, or is that leftovers from the scar?
It could be a little bit of both. I mean, the scar, I mean, in real life, we don't have magical scars, so I can't speak to that. But I would, or maybe you do, I don't know.
I mean, because I studied sociology extensively in college. My degree's in biochemistry, though. I was an odd duck.
You know what, you're in the right place.
But I as I was reading it, I kept going, she's doing a lot of nature versus nurture, and what if the scar, once I got to like the 6th and 7th book, I was like, yeah, his scar hurts, but the scar may be the physical manifestation of his mother's love.
Although, I mean, I know they say that it's, the scar is what happens when you're touched by a powerful curse.
Yeah.
But what okay,
Yeah.
hold on.
What if it's the flip side? Yeah, that's good.
All right. I woke up so fired off.
Sorry.
Shannon, you got me thinking about it in a different way.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I really like
Didn't mean
that.
to derail the
House
panel.
point. No, house points. That's house points. All right.
Yay.
I'd like to hop the pond now, and we have like 10 minutes. So
I know where they're
hop the
going.
pond and talk about
My favorites, I keep
how
saying
what
that.
discrimination looks like in America. It's actually very different. And the American wizards really don't seem to care about blood purity. Maybe stemming from the fact that they all came over from Britain. And
Yeah, because we're a bunch of mutts.
Yeah, they're a bunch of
So,
mutts
yeah.
anyway.
Well, you say that, but I'd argue that they're all purebloods because they don't mess with the NoMajs at all. So there are no purebloods, Muggleborns, really, in their society.
Valid point. Well, 4 points.
I mean, how would people know though? Like, you can't keep track of every single wizard and who they married.
There's a list for them too that I did not put on here. I did leave.
Do they have a?
It's not like a pure blood list, but it's like an older families list. And the first, Overmorning's founder herself was a descendant of, she was a Gaunt. She was a Gaunt, right? She was a descendant
Slytherin.
yeah, Slytherin. And so it got to, that was like the first bloodline. Is it the first bloodline? Do we know? It was one of the more prominent ones. Pure blood was probably one of the more prominent bloodlines to first come over, so it's true. But because of that, they do, what you said, they have Rappaport's Law enacted like in the 1600s because someone
They're not
really messed up.
NoMajs.
Yes. Which we can also attribute to the Salem witch trials.
But we didn't see how they reacted to Muggleborn or Half-Blood. None of them were called out for being either of those. They just didn't want you to have anything to do with the little NoMajs that were running around because that could cause problems. So we don't know what kind of discrimination may be played forth as far as Half-Bloods and Muggleborns are concerned.
I feel like they did this somewhere.
She needs to cover that. Of course, she's already screwed up America. Right, we would only have one school. Have you been here? Long. Well, we took that for 2 years. Oh, and speaking of, yes, so tomorrow I have my live-action Choose Your Own Adventure, and I have included 16 of those schools all across America. Yes, and that's what you'll be able to do. As you and Harry Potter or Percy Jackson go from school to school to school to try to beat this evil wizard in finding the lyre of Orpheus. But because she did it wrong. One school. Give me a break. Welcome to America, woman. We got a school down the street in a strip mall. Just like we have a church right next door. Bootleg churches, bootleg schools. We got them all over the place.
Okay.
So there's probably a bootleg preacher in here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you.
So much, it felt like so much southern pride right there.
Oh, it is. But yeah, I hate the fact that we don't know, they didn't show it. So
No.
Is there that level of discrimination that you see over there with?
Well, Grindelwald has a very strong view on.
Oh, that's because he went to Darmstrong.
Yeah, he's European.
Oh, yeah, he's a Nazi.
Yeah, he just got.
Yeah.
I wrote down, don't use words.
And I think also the way
When I use it, I mean it in the purest sense.
For me, I was
His
like,
school is
stay
taught
away.
that there is one right, and
It is a dark arts school.
the way she described this dark art school, they are pure groups that think very little of everybody else. Yeah, you recognize that political party?
Power,
Yeah.
not so much purity. He is more about people who are powerful are the ones who should be in charge, and obviously the wizards are
I
powerful.
mean, even with that ring of fire or something.
Do I?
That ring of fire, like you have to cross this fire to be with me. If you can't make it across the fire, like even the wizards, he was calling some of the wizards at his rally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it is more about power. I can see blood purity, but it was. He also said, what did he say about some of them? He's like, some of you, we won't kill all of them. They have their uses.
Yeah, some of them are powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to use the ones that can get you somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we have like 3 minutes.
But Grindelwald is not American, so, you know,
No, okay,
so we
that's
can't
true.
use him in a discussion of discrimination in America, in the magic community. She hasn't really
That's what
broached
she's
it,
written
she
down.
hasn't talked about
But
it.
is
Probably doesn't want
he
to.
influencing it?
Do I-
But is he
After what she did
influencing
before,
it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did,
But is he influencing it?
oh, Grindelwald? Oh, well, I mean, we get influenced by outside
Yeah.
people all the time, so, yeah, he's influencing some. But I don't, yeah, where did he go? I mean, we're just getting it right when he starts this crap in the 20s and, you know, 30s. I don't know what kind of bad things that he calls over here with these notions that he has. I don't know. I'm hoping we get to see it all. And these people that poo-poo Fantastic Beasts, I'm sorry, you're missing a really awesome series that is developing and giving us so much backstory and depth and meat. Yeah, I throw them in the same category of people that poo-poo the prequels of Star Wars. Boy, you miss that one. Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot more, and I think maybe next year. No, yeah, it comes out next
It
year.
comes out next year.
Oh, but it comes out the week after CONjuration next year. Okay, in 2 years, maybe we'll have a little more about the discrimination in America, but I think that they're going to focus mostly on Hogwarts in South America is what I've heard.
Yeah.
But who knows?
But it's a whole.
South America should be cool. We haven't done that before.
We have like 60 seconds, but does anyone have anything that we missed? That you guys wanted, like, had a burning desire to have discussed?
You didn't talk about squibs, you know, the person, like,
Oh my God, you're right, we
born in
didn't.
magical families, but not
Yes.
magical themselves. And I always felt sorry for them. I felt like,
I did too.
Didn't
I
I with my
really felt
title?
sorry for them. How do you live in that world? You don't belong in the Muggle world, you don't belong in the
Being
magical world.
self-righteous and you don't even talk about it.
You know, it's true, it's true. I look at squibs the way that I think a lot of people look at the kids that are in special education.
Oh.
You know, it's like, oh,
that's-
yeah, it's all pity. It's
Right,
all
but that's,
pity. And
yeah,
every
that
time
perspective
he comes
is
up
also
and
an
preaches
awe
to us, it's
perspective.
like, oh, that must have been hell. And we do the same thing. I don't know if it's a discrimination thing or if it's just outright pity. Oh,
It's
bless
still
their heart.
That's still different.
Right.
Yeah, but hold on. You're not gonna sit next to the guy?
But it's still
I mean, look, Draco doesn't want to sit next to Hermione. That's discrimination.
Okay, yeah, but if
If you're willing to sit next to the guy, you can still show pity for somebody, not discriminate against them.
But that is, I mean,
I mean,
yeah,
you're
that's a
not
form
gonna
of
ask him to cast a
discrimination.
spell for you, but that's not discrimination.
But you're assuming something here that this swim is completely inept of everything because he's not casting, because he's not magical. What can he still offer to that community? And when you cut off that view of maybe he can offer something to the magical community in spite of this, that's discrimination.
They're still letting him hang out in the community. So they haven't cut him off.
But they're
As-
not acknowledging that he can offer anything to the community. And that, I think, is a big difference.
Well, if it's a magical community, what can a non-magical person offer to that community? I think we have to be honest.
But he's
I don't think it's discrimination.
He doesn't have enough to cast a spell with.
Well, like,
He's got the
do you
magic
have
key.
to have
The thing he
magical
can
abilities
offer
to
is
do
he can
potions?
Get a girlfriend and make a baby and hope for better outcomes. Because, I mean, he's genetically predispositioned for, you know, making magical. He missed that gene, so.
Research, you could teach history of magic. I mean, the fact that a ghost has that job and not a squib, like,
How many squibs do we know? We know 2. And were they forced into those positions? Was he forced to be the janitor at Hogwarts? Was she forced to be the crazy cat lady? I don't know. We didn't get any kind of depth there. You know, are they really shunned? I mean, Dumbledore obviously doesn't shun.
Yeah.
He's friends with her. He hired him.
Look what Neville's uncle did to him when they thought he was Maybe a squid.
Yeah, no, wait a minute, is there a third
Yeah.
thing you heard about Molly Weasley's cousin, who's the accountant?
Yeah.
We don't talk about him?
To me, accounting is an action moment.
But see, once again, we don't know why they don't talk about him.
Why I haven't.
Do they not talk about him because he's a squib, or do they not talk about him because he's that uncle that comes to Thanksgiving and brings up bad topics?
They're not, you're
I
right.
don't know, so, I don't know. I don't think they mistreat them. Right, maybe pity is a form of discrimination, but I don't.
I think
I don't-
othering them is
Either way, they're considered not part of our world.
Not.
But they are. They are part of the world. They're just, they can't do everything you can do. But it's not like they said, oh, I'm sorry, you're a squib. You have to go live on
Well, we're
Madagascar.
getting into the menial aspect. Here, you push a broom. Here, you hang out with cats.
We're over
You
time,
mind with
because I feel like this is
Here, you
going
go
on
be an
so
accountant.
long. We are over time. Thank you guys so much for listening.
If you want to talk about squibs next year, leave it in the panel
Yes,
review.
please, I will come back.
Oh, yeah, that's what we do. We do a panel of squibs next year.
Perfect.
The mistreatment of squibs.
I didn't. Actually.